Our friend Senator John Horhn, chairman of Senate Labor Committee, is on with us via TV, which we are always available on SuperTalk TV and across the entire state on C Spire, Channel 70. John, good morning, sir. How are you? It's good to have you.
Good morning to you, Paul. And it's the housing chairman in this term, by the way.
It's not Labor Committee?
No longer.
Did they not? Oh, they did not change that. Then all right, we'll have to double check. I appreciate it, sir. Gosh, we're getting down to the last few weeks of the session, and there's a lot of things happening. We only have a short segment here. Just set the stage of what you think some of the important things are, where we are and where we're going in these last few days.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of big issues that are yet to be decided upon. We've got the issue of Medicaid expansion, MAEP funding for our public education program, the PERS system, our state retirement system, and the unfunded liability that we're witnessing there. We've got judicial redistricting for judges and district attorneys. The CCID, the Capital Complex Improvement District, and a number of changes that are going on within it. So there's a lot yet to be decided, and we're getting down to what we call the lick log.
Yeah. I'm a little surprised at a couple of these. Number one, the judicial thing, because during the campaign there was a lot of controversy over that. It doesn't seem to be stirring up as much controversy. Have you read the bill, or do you have any problems with it?
Judicial, which bill are you speaking about, Paul?
The judicial appointments on redistricting, the judicial redistricting. You just mentioned it.
Yeah, judicial redistricting has to deal with our chancery and circuit court systems.
Right.
And there, a lot of folks don't like change. We've had some population shifts around the state that is going to necessitate our reshifting some of these districts. Some folks are going to lose and some are going to win. And especially if you're a sitting judge, you don't want to have your district at risk or make it harder for you to win your district. So there are a lot of raw feelings about that. And Southwest Mississippi and Northwest Mississippi are probably going to take the hardest hit because of population loss.
I got you. I guess what I was referring to back during the election between Chris McDaniel and the Lieutenant Governor's office, there was a lot of push on that one as far as Madison County. And then I looked at the map. I can't tell heads from tails on it, but I haven't heard any outcries.
Not much. I mean, people are protesting quietly. We had a pretty vigorous debate on the floor yesterday about the new districts and how they're going to be formed. But, at the end of the day, all of this is going to conference. And six guys or gals are going to decide the final version of redistricting.
Does that have a federal mandate as far as when it has to be done?
There are some mandates with regard to the policy. Next year, a lot of judges are running, and we didn't want to. We don't want to get into a situation where we don't have a clear plan, where we have to do it next year when folks will have maybe 4 months to decide if they're going to run or run again, or get into a race for the very first time. And we think a year and a half out is a better way to go than than doing it next year.
I don't want to go too much in the weeds on this one, but as far as I know, you guys did a strike all of the House bill. I was looking at the bill HB 722. So you're really starting from scratch on this thing this late in the session, right?
Well, not really. We're just taking the Senate position. And, what's really the big, I think, what's coming out of this deal is that there are a lot of philosophical differences between the House and Senate, not just on this issue, but on a number of different issues.
Well, we've seen that, and I think we mentioned more than once, John, where each legislative session has its own personality. And certainly in the first of a 4-year term, and this is 4 months, so you have a chance to really start with your cellmates for 4 long months is a long time to get, especially with new people coming in for the first time. But I think, and somebody said yesterday that if the Senate was testing the resolve of the new speaker, I think the test, he passed it. So is there any of that where you do have some people, maybe some even members of the other party in the House, but certainly House and Republicans and Democrats in the Senate, kind of test the resolve of a new speaker? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I would say that resolve has been manifest in 2 particular issues. One is the Medicaid expansion bill, and the other is the MAEP formula. The House has drawn a line in the sand on those 2 issues, and they are testing the Senate's resolve to stick to his own guns.
And on both of those issues?
On both of those issues, we're a wide way apart between the Senate version of the expansion, Medicaid expansion, and the House version of Medicaid expansion. I'm not sure we're going to get a bill. I think we're so far apart, and we're so entrenched in our positions. It's going to be tough for us to reach a compromise.
Is that inclusive? And again, John Horhn is my guest, Senator John Horhn. Is that included, John, on both the FPL, the federal poverty line numbers, and the work requirement, or is one more important than the other for the Senate?
For the Senate, I think the work requirement is the bigger issue. We have a number of members who voted for the bill on the condition that 30-hour work requirement be in the bill, and they don't want to see any deviation from that. I think the House has pinned its efforts toward the 138% of the federal poverty level, and they're sticking to their guns in that regard, whereas the Senate wants just 100% of the federal poverty level. So those are the 2 big sticking points, I think, in the Medicaid expansion bill. But, if you look at the MAEP formula, the Mississippi Adequate Education Program funding for K-12 education, the House has basically attempted to throw out the MAEP formula. And the Senate has come with some modifications to the formula, but the House has said, look, it's our plan, take it or leave it. And so a couple of days ago, we left it.
Is that because it's their plan? That's what a lot of people... Let me say, and we'll get back in a moment because I want to speak to this. Both of these things that we just talked about, the Medicaid and also the education formula bills. More with Senator John Horhn, District 26, Hinds County, Madison Counties. When we... there will never be another B.B. King. Is absolutely positive. You might have some imitators, but never another B.B. King. Back with yes, go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, Paul, that next year is the 100th anniversary of B.B. King's birth. And we're planning a number of celebrations. It's actually his and Medgar Evers' birth year.
How about that? Yeah.
And we've got a bunch of activities planned to commemorate those 2 gentlemen.
You ever get a chance to meet him, B.B. King?
Oh, yeah, several times. In fact, I escorted B.B. From the Senate chamber down to the first floor when we honored him on that particular day. And it took us about 25 minutes to get from the Senate chamber down to the first floor because of the throngs of people that were there to touch the hem of his garment. And I was trying to nudge him along, to try to get moving faster down the hallway. And he turned and looked at me and said, "Don't push me, young man." He said, I know we have to move, but don't push me. And I said, "Yes, sir."
He was a humble guy. I mean, as far as star power, he just seemed like the hometown Indianola guy, no matter where he happened to be.
And he brought tears to the eyes of every person in that at that presentation, every member of the Senate, everybody in the gallery. He said, I've met kings and queens, presidents and dictators. He said, but this is the greatest moment of my life, when he was being honored by his home state.
That is on tape somewhere and should be replayed every once in a while. I agree with you. Back to the mundane stuff, the unimportant stuff is in politics. After appearances really on SuperTalk yesterday, it was a big day. I had the House Education Chairman, Chairman Robertson on. Gerard had the Speaker of the House, Speaker White on. Both of them reinforcing their commitments to fix a broken education funding formula. I don't think anybody can argue with that. It is broken. By the way, INSPIRE stands for, and I didn't know this, investing in the needs of students to prioritize, impact, and reform education. Now, yesterday, over in the other chamber, they kept it alive, and Rob Robertson said, this will give us one more opportunity to give the Senate a chance to look at this and also do what is best and right for our school children. And the House passed that yesterday, 103-16, and now it's back into your chamber in the Senate. And you, as a learned member of the chamber or the Senate, what do you think about that?
Well, Chairman Dennis DeBar, is our chairman of education, and he does a great job with that committee. Made several statements on the floor yesterday where he basically said, we've been caught cold on this. This formula change is drastic. We haven't had a chance to study it. I would invite our House colleagues to work with us over the course of the summer and the fall to try to craft a better formula that everybody can sign on to and embrace. And so I don't think we're going to see a change in MAEP formula this year, but who knows? We might be able to come up with something next year.
You've been caught, but this was released in February, was it not?
The MAEP, the new funding formula that the House has proposed, yes, it was proposed.
Now, so how could you be caught? Well, let me ask you this: if you were doing a bill and you named it whatever you wanted to name it, and you did a rewrite of MAEP, understanding that it's never been funded but twice, once by a Republican and once by a Democrat administration, would you, before you even got in with your committee or your summer group and everything else, call the members of the House and said, I want you to do this with me, or would you guys fashion the bill on your own?
Well, I think that's the issue, and the Senate position is that this has been something that's been fashioned by the House without a lot of Senate input and involvement, and you don't do it in weeks, you do it in months, if not maybe a couple of years. And I think the position that the chairman is taking is that I'm willing to work with you, but let's be deliberate about this and take our time and not rush into it.
Well, wait a minute. If you're willing to work, and if that's the mindset of the Senate, why would you cut it off and just like the snake, head of a snake, well before the end of the session, when you've got some opportunities for conferences, you've got a chance to meet your objections, but basically what Dennis DeBar said, we're ending it here, and if you want to, we may study it during the summer, and basically that was it. That doesn't sound like you're willing to work together.
Well, I think what's playing into that is that we're coming towards the end of the session. Tempers are starting to flare a little bit. We're getting a lot of pressure, and I think that in DeBar's case, he does not want to be under that kind of pressure to make a decision about MAEP going forward. I think he wants to be a little bit more deliberate about it.
I'm not fail safe on this one at all, but just to take the temperature, and sometimes I got a chance to get it right. But I take the temperature on this one, and I think if you did take the temperature of this audience across the entire state from the Gulf Coast to the Tennessee line, you're probably going to win out with a few more people who are on your side as far as the Medicaid and the work requirement in this audience. And this audience is pretty darn important because it's the most likely to vote in any election out there. So I think you probably are holding the slight percentage points on the Medicaid situation, because I think most people understand we are number one in the number of people who are able to work and are not working. And this may exacerbate it as far as giving more government services, health care. But then again, a lot of this is for the working poor, so that will take care of itself. I think you guys might have the leading edge on that one, but I think you're far behind as far as the MEP. Everybody we talk to, most of the information we get here, social media, C-Spire text line, there are just so many people who are ready to ditch the Democrats' MEP and move on to something else.
I don't know. You have a better sense of the pulse of things there, Paul, but I would say that what I've heard about the House, I have not read the House bill, and nor do I care to. Education.
Well, I think that's some of the problem right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's some of the problem right there, John.
Complex bureaucracies that we have in the state. And there ought to be a simpler, fairer way to dispense funds. The House claims that its approach is going to be fairer and more equitable to those districts that can't afford to pay for education at the local level. And so I look forward to hearing and seeing more about that, but I don't think we're going to get to a deal before the end of the session.
Well, it's something that the MAEP does not do. I got an analogy here. Let's just say it was, because a lot of people don't understand this, and I think that's the major part of this bill that needs to be addressed and can be addressed. It's not rocket science on this. Is how do you when you say do it fair and equitably, not in a socialist way, but to a as needed way, if you're going to improve education in these suppressed areas of the state? I would think you, number one, would be on board with this one. If it were food assistance and we had a finite amount of food that we could put out every year, the MAEP would equally distribute that food regardless of your household income. In other words, everybody's going to get the same amount of food, whether you are in an FPL below the poverty line and you can barely have food on the table at the end of the month, or if you're making $200,000 to $300,000 to $400,000 household income, you're going to get the same amount of food. And what Inspire says is that's just not right. What we need to do is, in the money that is made or in excess, to go try to fund those schools that need it more. They would get a little bit more than the schools that don't need it. And you think that's unfair?
No, I don't. I would favor dispensing the money in a way that's according to folks' need. You don't need to be sending an excess amount of money to a rich county.
I'll give you the final. I'll give you the final word just a moment. We're going to be taken out. Let me say it this way. If you did read Inspire and it said that and it would do what you wanted, would you vote for it then?
Oh, I probably would vote for it and support it if it does what Inspire is saying.
But you haven't read it. All right. Still there because he is still there. To answer your question, no, you got one more segment, John. John Horhn, Senator from Mississippi District 26. I wanted to give you the final say of anything that you want to, your final thoughts here.
Yeah, I want to say that I think that with our education chairman, Senator DeBar has done yeoman's work in trying to craft an improved version of MAEP. In just about every case, there is a fairer dispensation of funds. I think just about every school district will see some sort of an increase if it is merited. And I think that we need to enter into this debate and discussion about how we fund public education with an open mind, and having one side say take it or leave it, or the other side say take it or leave it is not in the spirit of compromise, and I think that needs to change.
All right, so you're basically seeing that the Senate has its version that just appeared when? Last week?
No, we've had a version that came out about 5 or 6 weeks ago.
Oh, really? Has the House been privy to that? Okay, so why wouldn't you want to take both of those and go to conference instead of cutting it off and saying, no, we're not going to talk anymore, it's over? And then the House subsequently also says they're drawing a line in the sand and saying MAEP, as far as the House of Representatives, is a dead deal for them.
Right. I think both sides need to come together.
We still got time for that?
I don't know that we have time for it in this session. We've got a lot of, we've got that big PERS issue that's still out there. We have Medicaid expansion. We have a lot of other issues that are taxing us right now. And I think that we're probably going to have to deal with this in the summer.
Yeah, John, we got enough committees to do all the we got enough committees to walk and chew gum in a platoon, so we shouldn't have that much of a problem with handling more than one thing.
You never say never. In this legislative process, a lot can get done in a short period of time, but I just think that the personalities of the two bodies are a little far apart right now on public funding for education.
Any of your bills that are still live that you want to mention, or is everything passed by, gone?
Well, I thought we've gotten a couple of amendments in that might be helpful, but the biggest issue I had was on illegal dumping, and that died in a House committee. We got it out of the Senate, but it died in a House committee. And I also have and still have some hope that we'll be able to do something for affordable housing before the session's up.
Yeah. Are you feeling a little bit better about the Capital District and what's going on as far as the efforts to maybe cut crime downtown?
Well, yeah, I think crime is down in most parts of the city. It's still too high, and there's a lot of crimes of passion that are still out there that are very, very troubling. But I think that we've seen some good come out of the Capitol Complex Improvement District, both in terms of infrastructure improvements as well as public safety.
Final question here, since today is National Grilled Cheese Day. What is Senator John Horhn's favorite way to have a grilled cheese sandwich?
I stay as far away from that stuff as I can get. I want to live, Paul.
Well, I didn't say put peanut butter on it. I just said a regular cheese. Well, cheese got a lot of vitamin in it. John, always a pleasure, sir. I thank you for taking the time, and we look forward to talking to you again. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Paul.